Imagine stepping onto a landlocked country in the very heart of West Africa. A country with no coastline, no great rivers for international trade, and often overlooked on the global map. Now imagine, in this very place, rising from the red dust and golden savannas, the largest and most ambitious airport hub Africa has ever seen. A gateway not just for Burkina Faso, but for an entire continent. What would that mean? Could it transform a struggling nation into a shining beacon of connectivity, wealth, and power? Or would it become a dream too heavy to carry, crushed under politics and global rivalries? This is the story of what might happen if Captain Ibrahim Traoré decided to build a mega airport hub for West Africa. At first, it sounds impossible. Burkina Faso is one of the poorest nations in the world. Its people face daily struggles: terrorism in the north, weak infrastructure, limited electricity, and a fragile economy dependent mostly on agriculture and gold mining. How could such a nation dream of competing with giants like Dubai, Doha, or Istanbul, cities that turned airports into symbols of power and wealth? Yet history tells us something important. Great transformations often come from places no one expects. Just decades ago, Dubai was nothing more than a small fishing village in the desert. Doha was a quiet coastal town. Today, they are global hubs because their leaders dared to imagine what others dismissed as impossible. Could Ibrahim Traoré, the young soldier-turned-leader of Burkina Faso, do the same? Let's imagine how it might begin. The plan would not just be about building a simple airport. It would be a mega project, a hub with runways long enough to host the largest airplanes in the world, terminals designed to handle millions of passengers each year, and cargo centers capable of connecting West African trade to Europe, Asia, and the Americas. It would be more than concrete and steel. It would be a vision that Africa, often treated as a periphery in global travel, could finally have a beating heart of aviation at its center. The first impact would be symbolic. For decades, travelers in West Africa have had to pass through foreign hubs like Paris, Istanbul, or Casablanca before reaching other parts of the world. A Burkina Faso flying to New York or Beijing would first stop in Europe or the Middle East. This dependence has always been a quiet reminder of colonial legacies and economic weakness. But a mega airport hub in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, would shatter that narrative. Suddenly, West Africans could travel directly to destinations across the globe from their own soil. The psychological effect of such a shift cannot be underestimated. It would say in clear terms, we are no longer dependent. We are a center of the world, not its edges. Of course, symbolism alone would not be enough. The real power of such an airport would lie in economics. Picture thousands of jobs created, not just for construction, but for airlines, maintenance, catering, hospitality, logistics, and security. Villages around the site would transform into towns, with hotels, restaurants, and businesses sprouting like new shoots after rainfall. For a country struggling with youth unemployment, this could change everything. An entire generation of Burkina Faso could find opportunities where none existed before. But beyond Burkina Faso, the ripple effects would spread across West Africa. Neighboring countries like Mali, Niger, and Ghana would see the airport as a regional lifeline. Landlocked nations could channel their exports through Burkina Faso's cargo terminals. Gold, cotton, livestock, and even new industries that the airport itself would attract. Think of fresh mangoes from Mali flown overnight to European supermarkets, or Nigerian tech entrepreneurs using the hub to connect with Silicon Valley investors. Slowly, the region's reputation would shift from instability and poverty to potential and connectivity. Yet, such a project would not remain a quiet African story. The world would notice, and here is where things get complicated. Western powers would watch carefully. France, which once held Burkina Faso as a colony, might feel uneasy. For decades, French airports and airlines have benefited from being the main gateway between West Africa and the world. A Burkina mega hub could challenge that dominance. Would France support the project, or would it quietly resist, fearing a loss of influence? The answer might depend on who funds it. If Traore turned to China, as many African nations have done, the picture would change dramatically. China, through its Belt and Road Initiative, has poured billions into ports, roads, and airports across Africa. A mega hub in Burkina Faso could easily fit into China's strategy, linking African resources and markets more directly to Beijing. But such a move would alarm Washington, Paris, and Brussels, who already worry about China's rising influence in Africa. Suddenly, a project meant to connect flights could also connect rivalries, a new battleground in the struggle between East and West. Meanwhile, Gulf states like Qatar and the United Arab Emirates might see opportunity. They know the power of airports better than anyone, having built their own wealth around them. Partnering with Burkina Faso could allow them to expand their influence deep into Africa. Imagine Qatar Airways or Emirates helping design the hub, using their expertise to turn Ouagadougou into the Doha of Africa. Such an alliance could bring prestige to Traore and stability to the project. But it could also spark jealousy among regional powers like Nigeria or South Africa, who might not want to see Burkina Faso leap ahead. All of this would make Traore's project not just an engineering challenge, but a diplomatic balancing act. To succeed, he would need to navigate global rivalries while keeping control of Burkina Faso's sovereignty. Too much dependence on one foreign partner could mean losing independence, but without outside investment, the project might never take off. Now let's turn to the cultural and social dimension. Burkina Faso is a proud nation with deep traditions. For many rural families, life is still centered around farming, cattle, and village life. Would a mega airport hub bring them closer to the world or leave them behind? On one hand, it could open opportunities for Burkina artists, musicians, and entrepreneurs to share their culture globally. Imagine local craftsmen selling their work to tourists passing through the airport, or Burkina music spreading faster through cultural exchanges. On the other hand, globalization always comes with risks, rising inequality, cultural dilution, and the danger that only a small elite benefits while ordinary people remain stuck in poverty. This raises a critical question. Could Traore design the project in a way that truly serves his people, not just foreign investors or the wealthy elite? This would require careful planning, ensuring job training for youth, building schools and hospitals alongside the airport, and making sure profits are reinvested in local communities. If done wisely, the airport could become a model of inclusive development. If not, it could become another glittering monument disconnected from the struggles of ordinary Burkinabe. Security would be another challenge. Burkina Faso has faced years of violent insurgencies in its northern regions, fueled by extremist groups and instability spilling over from Mali. An international airport hub would instantly become a high-profile target. Traore would need to ensure the safety of passengers, planes, and cargo, which would require massive investment in security systems, intelligence networks, and international cooperation. Failure in this area could destroy confidence overnight. Yet success could strengthen Burkina Faso's reputation as a stable and reliable partner in a region often plagued by instability. As the project grows in this imagined future, something fascinating happens. Burkina Faso begins to appear on the radar of travelers who had never heard of it before. Businessmen from Europe, tourists from Asia, aid workers, diplomats, and adventurers, all passing through Ouagadougou's gleaming new terminals. Each one carries a piece of the story back to their own country, that something extraordinary is happening in the heart of West Africa. Slowly, the global image of Burkina Faso shifts from a forgotten landlocked nation to a rising hub of possibility. But not everyone would celebrate. Some African leaders might quietly resent Traoré's vision. Nigeria, for instance, has long seen itself as the natural leader of West Africa. Would it allow Burkina Faso, a smaller nation, to claim such a central role in regional travel? Perhaps Nigeria would respond by investing heavily in its own airports, sparking a new era of competition. Or perhaps it would eventually join forces, realizing that a stronger Burkina Faso also means a stronger West Africa. The people themselves, the Burkinabe, would hold the final judgment. For a farmer in the countryside, the mega airport might feel distant, almost unreal. But if it leads to new roads, better schools, and opportunities for his children, he will see its value. For a young woman in Ouagadougou, dreaming of becoming a pilot, the airport could be the spark that makes her dream achievable. For a street vendor selling grilled meat outside the terminals, it could mean more customers and a better life. Development is never just about steel and glass. It is about how those structures ripple into human lives. And so, we return to the figure at the center of this imagined story, Ibrahim Traoré. Young, ambitious, and determined to chart a new course for his country. For him, the airport would not just be infrastructure. It would be a statement, a message that Burkina Faso refuses to remain trapped in the margins of history. That it can be bold, it can be central, it can dream beyond its limits. But every great dream carries a shadow. Airports are expensive, vulnerable, and politically sensitive. What if debt burdens cripple the nation? What if rival powers sabotage the project? What if security threats grow too strong? The line between triumph and tragedy is thin. And so the story of a Burkinabe mega airport hub hovers between possibility and danger, between a future of prosperity and a future of failure. The question is not only whether it can be built, but whether Traoré and his nation can bear the weight of what it would mean. Imagine then the grand opening day. The runways gleam under the African sun. Flags of many nations flutter in the warm breeze. A massive plane lands, its engines roaring, carrying passengers from across the globe. Ibrahim Traoré stands before the crowd, declaring that Burkina Faso has entered a new chapter. The world watches, some with hope, some with suspicion. And as the first flight departs, carrying the dreams of a continent, one question remains suspended in the air. Will this be the dawn of a golden age for West Africa, or the beginning of new struggles yet to unfold? The answer lies ahead, in choices yet to be made and challenges yet to be faced. For if Burkina Faso dares to dream of a mega airport hub, it will not only transform its skies, it may transform the destiny of a continent. The airport is open. The dream has taken form in steel, glass, and concrete. The first flights have departed. The first arrivals have landed. The runways stretch across the Burkinabe savannah like ribbons of ambition, and Ouagadougou's name is now spoken in the same breath as cities far wealthier and more powerful. But, as with all great dreams, once the celebration fades, reality begins to press in. For Ibrahim Traoré and his nation, the true story starts not on opening day, but in the days that follow. The first global reaction comes swiftly. Airlines from around the world, curious and cautious, begin to test the waters. Turkish Airlines extends more routes into Ouagadougou, seeing an opportunity to strengthen its global reach. Ethiopian Airlines, Africa's largest and most ambitious carrier, makes the hub a key stop in its expanding network. Even Qatar Airways and Emirates send their fleets, knowing that whoever dominates the skies of West Africa will shape the future of trade and travel for generations. But not every nation is pleased. France, once the colonial ruler, feels the sting of displacement. For decades, Paris was the gateway for West Africans traveling abroad. Families from Bamako, Niamey, or Ouagadougou would board flights to Paris before connecting elsewhere. Now, that flow is disrupted. The French economy feels a quiet but growing loss, and its leaders begin to question whether Traoré is not just building an airport, but breaking the invisible chains that once tied West Africa to Europe. Their reaction is subtle at first. Policies that make visas harder for Burkina Faso citizens, quiet pressure on French companies to withhold investment, whispers in diplomatic halls. But beneath the surface, resentment builds. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the United States debates how to respond. For Washington, a new hub in the Sahel could either be a threat or an opportunity. If China is behind the financing, then it is a threat. Another step in Beijing's long strategy of weaving Africa into its Belt and Road. But if the U.S. can engage, perhaps through partnerships with American airlines or security assistance, then the airport could become a foothold for American influence in a region where it has long struggled to establish a presence. In this way, Traoré's airport becomes more than a travel hub. It becomes a chess piece in a global game. China, of course, watches with satisfaction. If it helped build the airport, it has already won something powerful. Not just contracts and profits, but prestige. For Beijing, every gleaming terminal and every mile of new runway proves its claim that it, not the West, is the true partner of Africa. Yet China's embrace is never without cost. Debt begins to weigh heavily on Burkina Faso's economy. Billions must be repaid over decades, and questions rise. Will the profits of the airport cover these obligations? Or will the nation find itself trapped in debt, forced to make concessions on its resources, its land, even its sovereignty? Inside Burkina Faso, the social fabric begins to shift. For those in the capital, opportunities multiply. Hotels fill with foreign guests. Young people find jobs as ground staff, security officers, baggage handlers, and airline workers. Cafes open where once there was only quiet dust. For a new middle class, the airport is a blessing, the symbol that their country is finally rising. But outside the cities, in rural villages, not much changes. Farmers still struggle with erratic rains. Children still walk miles to reach schools with no electricity. For them, the shining airport is a distant palace, visible only on television screens. The risk grows that the new wealth will deepen divides between the urban elite and the rural poor, sowing seeds of discontent that could one day turn into unrest. And then there is security. From the very first day, the airport is a target. Extremist groups in the Sahel know that nothing would damage Burkina Faso's image more than an attack on its new pride. The government responds with heightened security measures. Military patrols, advanced scanning systems, intelligence networks. Western allies, recognizing their own interests, step in with training and technology. The airport becomes one of the most secure places in West Africa, a fortress of glass and steel. But this comes at a cost: heavy militarization, constant surveillance, and the uneasy feeling among travelers that freedom of movement is always under watch. Still, the hub begins to grow. Passenger numbers rise. Cargo flows increase. Suddenly, a farmer in Mali can see his mangoes sold in Europe within hours, and a Nigerian tech company can reach investors in San Francisco more easily than ever before. The economic map of West Africa starts to redraw itself, with Ouagadougou at the center. Yet this new centrality also shifts political balances. Nigeria, the giant of the region, cannot ignore it. For years, Lagos dreamed of being the aviation capital of Africa. But with Burkina Faso's leap, that dream is threatened. Nigerian leaders begin to push for their own expansion, pouring billions into Lagos and Abuja's airports. Competition intensifies, and with it, a new rivalry between West African states. Will this competition lead to growth for all, or fracture the fragile unity of ECOWAS? Beyond the region, the airport also reshapes migration. Many young Africans, desperate to leave, now see Ouagadougou as their first gateway to Europe, America, or the Middle East. Flights become packed with hopeful travelers chasing opportunity abroad. At the same time, the airport attracts foreigners, businessmen, tourists, and migrants from other continents. Burkina Faso begins to experience something new. Cultural mixing on a scale it has never seen. Some welcome it as a sign of progress, a bridge between worlds. Others fear it will erode traditions, bringing with it the social problems of globalization. Through all of this, Ibrahim Traoré becomes a figure both celebrated and criticized. To his supporters, he is the leader who dared to dream big, the man who gave his country a seat at the global table. His speeches at the airport, broadcast worldwide, resonate with pride and defiance. But to his critics, he is a gambler, risking the nation's fragile stability on a single project. They warn that airports alone cannot solve deep-rooted issues: poverty, insurgency, weak institutions. And if the airport falters, if debts pile up, then his dream could become a burden dragging the nation down. Yet, there is something undeniable. The airport has changed the way the world sees Burkina Faso. Before, it was often a forgotten name, a landlocked country known more for its struggles than its strengths. Now, every traveler passing through carries with them a new image of a nation ambitious enough to build what once seemed impossible. And image, in the world of politics and development, is a currency as powerful as gold. But let us look further into the future, where the consequences grow even more profound. Suppose the airport succeeds, year after year. Suppose it becomes the main hub, not just for West Africa, but for much of the continent. Then, Ouagadougou would rise to a status it has never known. International organizations might choose it for conferences. Airlines might base their fleets there. Global corporations might open offices, drawn by connectivity. The city could transform into a bustling metropolis, a miniature Dubai, rising from the savannah. Yet success on such a scale would bring its own dangers. Rapid urbanization could strain housing, water, and energy. Corruption might seep into the billions of dollars flowing through contracts and deals. And global superpowers, once content to watch, might decide to intervene more directly, through influence, pressure, or even destabilization. History teaches us that when small nations rise too quickly, they often attract the envy and interference of larger ones. Burkina Faso would need wisdom and unity to protect its sovereignty in the face of such pressures. And then there is the question of identity. What does it mean for a small, landlocked nation rooted in traditions of farming and village life to suddenly become a crossroads of the world? Could Burkinabe culture adapt without losing itself? Could the rhythms of the balafon and the djembe coexist with the roar of jumbo jets? Could the hospitality of a people known for simplicity and resilience survive the flood of global travelers, corporations, and ambitions? These questions are as vital as the technical ones, for a nation is not only its infrastructure, but its soul. As the years pass, the airport becomes more than just an airport. It is a mirror reflecting the hopes and fears of an entire continent. For Africa, too often portrayed as divided and dependent, it stands as proof that Africans can build, can lead, can dream. but it also becomes a reminder of the delicate balance between vision and reality, between independence and dependency, between opportunity and exploitation. And so we return to our central question. What if Ibrahim Traoré built a mega airport hub for West Africa? The answer is both inspiring and cautionary. It could transform Burkina Faso into a beacon of progress, create jobs, shift global trade routes, and give pride to millions. But it could also deepen inequalities, invite foreign manipulation, and burden the nation with debts it cannot escape. In the end, the true measure of such a project would not be in the size of its terminals or the length of its runways. It would be in the lives it touches. If a farmer in the countryside can see his children go to school because of the opportunities created, if a young woman can fly from Ouagadougou to study abroad and return to serve her people, if the wealth of the airport helps build hospitals, roads, and industries that lift all Burkinabe, then the dream will have been worth it. But if the airport becomes a shining monument surrounded by poverty, if it serves only the rich while the poor remain forgotten, then it will stand as a cautionary tale, a reminder that not all dreams lead to freedom. The skies above Ouagadougou are vast and open. Planes rise and descend, carrying stories across continents. Somewhere within that endless horizon lies the future of Burkina Faso. And as Ibrahim Traoré gazes toward it, one truth remains. In daring to imagine a mega airport hub for West Africa, he has already changed the story. Whether that story becomes one of triumph or tragedy will depend on the choices yet to be made, by him, by his people, and by the world that now watches. For sometimes, it is not the building of runways that matters most, but the direction in which they are. Subscribe for more amazing videos.